Sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis. It's that unsettling moment when you wake up, yet not entirely. Your eyes may snap open, much like a security camera rebooting after a power surge, and your familiar room suddenly takes on an eerie, unfamiliar cast. It's not necessarily wrong, just profoundly uncanny, as if rendered by a fledgling intern in the grand simulation studio of reality. You attempt to move an arm, a leg, anything, but there's only stillness. You try to scream, to call out, but your voice remains trapped, a silent plea. Then, the horror truly sets in. A shape, a fleeting shadow, a distinct figure, sometimes humanoid, often indistinct, seems to settle heavily upon your chest, as though it just clocked in for its dedicated night shift as your personal anxiety demon. Your consciousness is fully alert, yet your physical body remains rigidly anchored in REM sleep, the stage where it's naturally paralyzed to prevent you from acting out your most vivid dreams. But now, the system is clearly bugged. These two essential halves of your being are tragically out of sync. This is the essence of sleep paralysis. Your mind is punched in, while your body is still stubbornly on break. For millennia, this terrifying phenomenon was attributed to malevolent forces, witches, succubi, demons, or ghosts pressing down on their unsuspecting victims. As it turns out, the truth is far less supernatural, but no less unsettling. It's merely your brain holding the door wide open between the ethereal dream world and the raw, tangible meat reality, allowing all manner of bizarre perceptions to bleed through. It is, perhaps, the most visceral and terrifying lag spike you'll ever personally experience. Brain zaps. Brain zaps. Picture this. You're casually strolling down a sunlit street, sipping your favorite coffee, idly scrolling through your phone. Everything feels perfectly normal, perfectly chill. Then, out of the blue, zap! It's like a tiny, unexpected lightning bolt has shot directly across your brain, or as if someone attempted to hotwire your consciousness with a pair of jump cables. The sensation lasts only a fleeting half-second, but its impact is immediate and jarring, akin to an unwelcome pop-up ad for profound neurological instability. This is a brain zap. They often manifest during medication adjustments, particularly when tapering off or starting antidepressants. Though, frankly, they can appear anytime your brain decides to spontaneously update its firmware, without so much as a warning notification. Some individuals describe them as sudden static bursts, sharp electric jolts, or the distinct auditory sensation of their own thoughts short-circuiting. The truly frustrating part? Their unpredictability. Science still hasn't fully grasped their precise mechanism. It's almost as if your neurons were mid-transmission and suddenly exclaimed, "Oops, all static." While some theories point to serotonin withdrawal as a culprit, others implicate electrical misfiring within the brain. Regardless of the exact cause, it's fundamentally your brain briefly forgetting how to simply times B times a brain. Phantom vibration syndrome. Phantom vibration syndrome. You could swear your phone just buzzed. You felt the distinct tremor against your thigh, nestled in your pocket, or perhaps even in your palm. Instinctively, you pull it out, check the screen with hopeful anticipation. Nothing. No texts, no notifications, not even the passive-aggressive flicker of a low battery warning. And yet, the buzz felt undeniably real, or, at the very least, convincingly real. Welcome to phantom vibration syndrome, the subtle, modern haunting that often resides discreetly in your pocket. It's not a spectral presence. It's simply your hyper-alert nervous system running advanced predictive software based on your deep-seated dopamine cravings. Your brain has been meticulously trained, conditioned to associate any minute twitch of pressure or subtle movement with the promise of a potential message, a new connection. Since we're all constantly expecting someone to text, ping, or tag us in some digital interaction, your brain, in its eagerness, simply invents the sensation. Think of Pavlov's dog, but instead of a dinner bell, it's the potential ping of social validation. And the drool? That's a desperate, subconscious need for relevance. You are quite literally hallucinating feedback because your brain would rather be momentarily wrong than risk missing a precious notification. Hypnic jerks. Hypnic jerks. You're gently drifting, surrendering to sleep as if being softly cradled in the comforting arms of an angel woven from warm Netflix fuzz. Then, entirely without warning, boom. Your entire body violently flinches, as if you've just been expertly sniped in a high-stakes Fortnite match. Your leg kicks out, your arm flails wildly, and your brain instantly lights up with an urgent, bewildered question. What just happened? That, my friend, is a hypnic jerk, also known as a sleep start, or perhaps the body's most dramatic and emphatic way of saying, nah, not yet. These involuntary spasms typically occur precisely as you're on the cusp of falling asleep, when your heart rate and breathing begin to slow, and your muscles start to deeply relax. But your brain, in its infinite, often over-caffeinated paranoia, somehow misinterprets this serene relaxation as an ominous sign of death in progress, and slams the emergency brakes with startling force. Some evolutionary theorists posit it's a curious leftover from our ancient, tree-dwelling ancestors, a kind of primal anti-falling reflex designed to ensure we didn't plummet from a precarious branch mid-nap. Now, we mostly just jolt ourselves awake, sheepishly pretending we weren't moments away from dreaming about face-planting into the void. It's the body's oddly endearing version of falling for no logical reason, simply because it cares. Formication. Formication. It's the inescapable sensation that something is crawling on you. Not just a fleeting tickle, but a persistent, relentless feeling of tiny feet, Miniature claws, like an army of ants marching incessantly beneath your skin. You frantically scratch, dig your nails in. Nothing is there. You rub your arms, your legs, still nothing visible. Yet, the maddening feeling persists, an internal torment potent enough to send anyone spiraling into unease. This, precisely, is formication. And no, that's not a typo. It describes the vivid, tactile hallucination of insects crawling on or even under your skin. And it's surprisingly common, affecting more people than you might imagine. This disconcerting sensation can be triggered by a range of factors, including acute anxiety, hormonal shifts like menopause, stimulant withdrawal, or simply a case of plain old overclocked nerves. It's essentially a peculiar glitch in your somatosensory matrix, your brain receiving corrupted touch data, much like a computer trying to render textures from a damaged file. Instead of calmly informing you that nothing is actually happening, it whispers a vivid, high-definition tale of infestation. For some, it becomes a chronic burden. For others, it's a terrifying, one-time horror show. Either way, the problem isn't your skin, it's your internal code running debug mode on maximum paranoia. Déjà vu. Déjà vu. You're navigating a hallway you've never once traversed before, inside a building you've certainly never entered, engaging in conversation with a person you've only just met, and then, abruptly, you freeze. Wait, this has already happened. This exact moment, down to the subtle intonation of a particular word and the almost imperceptible flicker of a distant light bulb. You possess an uncanny, overwhelming certainty that you've lived this precise scenario before. That eerie, momentary glitch in the matrix is déjà vu. It's essentially your brain's peculiar version of a playback error, where a fresh piece of short-term memory somehow gets misfiled directly into the long-term section of your mental hard drive. So, instead of registering as new information, your brain erroneously flags it as a cherished, familiar memory. Some cognitive scientists theorize it's the brain running its internal simulations just a fraction too fast, momentarily out of sync with present reality. Others suggest it's a transient hiccup in memory processing, where a single sensory signal is inadvertently duplicated and then interpreted as a pre-existing familiarity. But for that fleeting split second, it undeniably feels like you've somehow managed to break the fabric of time itself. Perhaps you have. Or perhaps you're simply a meat-based time traveler operating with a slightly faulty compass. Exploding head syndrome. Exploding head syndrome. You're finally, blissfully, sinking into sleep. You've dimmed the lights, switched on the comforting hum of the fan, and managed to quiet the relentless volume of your racing thoughts. Just as you're delicately crossing the border into unconsciousness, kaboom, a noise so incredibly loud and sudden erupts that you instinctively assume a bomb has detonated nearby. You bolt upright, heart pounding a furious rhythm against your ribs, adrenaline surging, ready to fight an unseen assailant. No one is there, because the explosive sound originated entirely from inside your head. That, my friend, is exploding head syndrome. And no, rest assured, your head does not literally explode. Apologies if that's a slight disappointment. Instead, it's a fascinating type of parasomnia, a sleep disorder where your brain bizarrely fires off phantom sounds precisely as you're drifting into sleep. These sounds can range from deafening bangs and crashes to shattering glass, or even resonant thunderclaps. While the exact cause remains a mystery, some researchers believe it's due to misfiring neurons in the brainstem. Others speculate it might be a dream element breaking through into waking consciousness too early, much like a soundtrack glitch in a video game. Either way, it's startling, utterly harmless, and almost always leaves you wide awake, disoriented, and momentarily doubting your very reality. Eye floaters. Eye floaters. You're gazing idly at the sky, zoning out during a leisurely walk, or perhaps spacing out during an interminably boring Zoom call, and then, suddenly, you see them. Little strands, tiny dots, wispy cobwebs. They drift lazily and almost playfully across your field of vision. You try to focus on them, to pin them down, but they deftly dodge your gaze, much like seasoned NPCs in a digital world. These are eye floaters, and despite their appearance, they are not bugs in the matrix. They are, in fact, shadows. Specifically, they are tiny bits of protein or collagen, microscopic debris suspended within the vitreous jelly that fills the interior of your eyeball. When light enters your eye, these minuscule particles cast small shadows directly onto your retina, and that's precisely what you're perceiving. Not ghosts, not elusive microbes, just everyday bio-junk. Floaters are perfectly normal, especially as you gracefully age. The vitreous jelly in your eye naturally becomes a little less firm, a little more goopy, allowing these bits of cellular debris to begin floating around within it. Much like space junk in distant orbit, they typically fade or sink out of view on their own. However, if they suddenly and dramatically multiply, it could be a sign of a more serious retinal tear, which is less of a quirky glitch and more of an urgent call to your ocular emergency hotline. Until then, it's simply your built-in head-up display gracefully growing a little biological moss. ASMR. ASMR. You're engrossed in a video. Perhaps someone is whispering softly, or gently tapping on a glass surface, maybe brushing a microphone with delicate precision, or even folding towels with the serene composure of a monk who just discovered the calming power of lavender. And then it happens. A wave of warm, fuzzy sensation unfurls across your scalp. Goosebumps ripple down your neck and arms. An exquisite physical response, as if you're downloading pure bliss in glorious 4K resolution. This is ASMR, Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. a completely unintentional cheat code embedded within your sensory system that triggers profound physical euphoria from, essentially, nothing. No physical touch, no perceived danger, no logical explanation required. Just sound, focused attention, and perhaps a touch of digital intimacy. No one fully comprehends its precise mechanisms, but some compelling theories suggest it's deeply linked to ancient grooming behaviors in primates. When a trusted individual carefully combs your hair, your body naturally releases feel-good endorphins. ASMR, in this context, might be your modern brain playfully confusing whispering strangers on the internet for emotionally bonded grooming partners. It's undeniably weird, profoundly soothing, and one of the very few glitches in our human operating system that feels distinctly like a reward rather than a penalty. Your body just granted you a free serotonin buff for merely watching someone crinkle a wrapper. In any game, that's an undeniable win. Bonus glitch. Muscle twitching. Bonus glitch. Muscle twitching. You're sitting perfectly still, minding your own business, utterly at peace, when suddenly your eyelid embarks on a rogue dance, or your bicep decides to start thumping rhythmically as if it's attempting to escape the party early. No prior warning. No discernible context, just random, unsolicited Morse code being tapped out across your flesh. This is benign fasciculation, a rather fancy medical term for your muscles spontaneously firing off without bothering to ask for permission. It could be attributed to an excess of caffeine, insufficient sleep, mild dehydration, or perhaps your neurons are simply feeling a little spicy today. It's generally harmless, if undeniably annoying. Much like your body has installed a Twitch stream with an utterly non-existent chat filter, and the more you consciously think about it, the more you focus on that particular twitch. Yep, the more it seems to twitch. Welcome to the perplexing paradox of awareness. Your brain noticing the glitch times the glitch, and that concludes our fascinating tour of some of the weirdest and most common bugs in the intricate human operating system. From misfired neurons to peculiar sensory hallucinations, the biological vehicle you inhabit is clearly not a finished product. You are not broken, you are merely, and quite interestingly, patched. So, the next time your body does something truly bizarre or freaks out in an unexpected way, just remember, you are most certainly not alone. You're simply glitched like the rest of us.